Hello, everybody. This is Jon Croft with Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft, and I am Jon Croft. How's everybody doing?
Hi.
Uh, Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Um, yes, it's been quite an interesting week or two.
Mhm.
A lot of stuff's been happening, and not all of the things good. Um,
Yeah.
I think it was last week I talked about how um, I did a story on the Daily Wire with Jeremy Boring leaving the Daily Wire. And I was like, we'll talk about that later. Not a big deal. Um, I talked about it slightly, but only in the sense that we mostly were not going to talk about it, which I still mostly hold to. As it comes to the stories this week, we have quite a bit. Let me just bring some of it up here. More recently, there's this one, which is the devastating rights dispute hits Angel Studios and Slingshot, owner of animated family-friendly David. So the David movie, this just came out a few days ago. David movie is not doing well and might not release in November as a result.
Mm,
Other stories that also happened, I don't think I mentioned this last week, did I? No, that's this week.
I think so.
Jonathan Rumi signed on to Tod Polson's The 21 about the 21 Coptic martyrs. So that's an incredible short movie. People really should watch that. There's a trailer here, and also we also have the actual. There's an interview with the director Tod Polson.
Wow.
Um, the movie itself is also here, so it was not here before, and they just went through a festival release, and then they said after the festival they would put it online. So they did,
It looks
and
amazing.
it is really amazing. In fact, I don't see why not watch it. I mean, it's on YouTube, so let's watch.
In 2015, ISIS murdered 21 Christian migrant workers on a beach in Libya. This is the story of the men who died, as told by those who loved them and those who hated them.
Wow.
محبة الله الآب ونعمة الابن الوحيد ربنا وإلهنا ومخلصنا يسوع المسيح شركة وموهبة وعطية الروح القدس تكون مع
Watch this.
جميعكم امضوا بسلام
Yeah.
وسلام الله يكون مع جميعكم.
In the early 21st century, ISIS began a reign of terror in attempts to cleanse North Africa of Christians. One of their favorite prey? Egyptian Coptic Christians. In December 2014, ISIS captured 7 Coptic Egyptians as they were making their way home to Egypt.
So I don't want to play the whole thing now, but there I don't know if you could hear it, but they were talking about how they capture Coptic Christians in Egypt.
Mm.
Um, and in 2014 they captured a bunch of them. Did you like that shot of
Yeah.
of the Christ? Um,
Yes.
Something happens to me when they cut in close to him, like right there.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's the spirit right there.
Yes.
You can feel it. Um, Intimacy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some of the shots are just incredible. You really need to watch it. It
It's like that shot. It's like they're saying, and now we're going to watch this movie through his eyes.
Oh yeah.
Or we're going to tell this story through his eyes.
Yep. Yep. If you haven't seen it yet, you really should see it. Um, Obviously it's on Media Moses. You can get there from Media Moses.
Mm.
Um, and you can go to this website. for the company that put it out. Oh my goodness, this shot. I don't want to reveal to you. It's after you see this guy, this shot, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness. It's really incredible. Um, and they bring them to the beach
Mm.
and they force them to carry heavy sand. Um, they try to get them to betray God, to reject God. Um, and none of them do. And then this shot, which is incredible also, this is showing them all walking in the sand.
Hmm.
I love this shot right coming up here. Um, see,
At times, ISIS saw strange figures walking among the Christians.
it's
Wow.
it said ISIS sometimes saw strange figures walking among the Christians.
Wow.
This is
That's beautiful.
it's important to note because if these accounts are true, God revealed this to the ISIS people for a reason.
Wow.
And so the idea as a Christian, not just as someone who thinks about suffering in the world, but as a Christian, the idea here isn't to say God's angels are here fully armed and will not harm you because of because they're unable or unwilling, right? It's to say that God is still real and he's watching over his people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you do to them, God is still in charge.
Yeah.
So maybe God is saying, I could stop you anytime I want to
Mhm.
because I am in charge. And this is as a witness, a mercy to ISIS
Mhm.
because it reveals to them that God is real and that if he wants to destroy them, he can. But why does he show them this? It's mercy so they might turn from this, even in their terrible wickedness, right? He's given them an opportunity to change
Mhm.
by revealing the truth. So, wow, it's these kinds of situations that have happened in the Christian church for 2 millennia are reasons why the church thrives,
Yeah.
are reasons why the church cannot be defeated, and are reasons why the gates of hell will never prevail against our God's church. Never. I mean, there's no trick that can take us out of his hand. So,
Amen.
um, God is with us and we love him. So, why would we deny him? It's silly. So read that article. The thing about Jonathan Rumi is because I track Jonathan Rumi online. So whenever something goes on with him, I know about it. And he signed on as an executive producer, which means he probably helped fund the project. Not that he helped produce it in the sense of creating it, but in the sense of saying, I believe in this project. I'm going to throw you guys some money so you
Yeah.
can finish it. And I'm glad he did. A lot of other great people did too. I believe even Dallas Jenkins threw some money at them.
Oh,
So a lot of different people have seen the incredible value in this work. I don't know if you could recognize some of the animation, by the way. Todd,
yeah. I was gonna say something about that actually. It looks like, and now I remember what you said. It looks like a very similar style to the Book of Kells.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Cartoon Saloon, Tod Polson worked for them back in the day at Secret of Kells.
Awesome.
And so since then he left for religious reasons, he cited.
Wow.
And so he wants to continue working on Christian projects like Secret of Kells and like this one, and not like the other ones that Cartoon Saloon was working on more recently. Um, Sadly, and this is true for most of the mainstream Western media, is that they've all turned away from Western values almost simultaneously in the last 5 years. So lockstep corporate stuff. And so people like Tod Polson have had to leave and do their own thing and making projects like this one. I wish they could make a feature of this kind of thing. It doesn't have to be martyrdoms. That's pretty hefty for 2 hours. But like something like that. I mean, the animation was incredible. And I'd like to see more of these kinds of things. So,
Well, I mean, this is a good sign.
mhm.
He's got a short and Jonathan Rumi is involved, so that's a good sign that something could come of that, of a
Yep,
feature, perhaps. That would be great.
it would be. So some of the other stuff I guess I have going on.
That's too bad about the animated feature film of David because that looks amazing. And I
Well,
feel like we saw the trailer for it like 2 years ago. And I'm so excited just to watch it.
I'm still excited to see it.
Yeah.
Here it is. So we'll go there now. Devastating rights dispute hits Angel Studios and Slingshot, owner of animated family-friendly David. So
Hmm.
Slingshot is the American company that does producing for Sunrise Pictures. I believe they're called Sunrise Animation Studios, which is the South African animation house.
Hmm.
So they've been working on this for like a decade. I mean, they've been working on David for a long time. It's a pet project for this. Oh, this post is for subscribers only. So if you're not a subscriber,
Oh,
go to mediamoses.com and become a subscriber. It doesn't cost any money. It's just your email. So I will go to my other browser, which is open. Let me do that.
yeah. I don't know how they could deprive us of the of
Yeah.
this movie.
So this is the one of my other browser, which is logged in already. This is all my assessment of what's going on here. I'll read some of it. The worst possible legal dispute has hit Angel Studios since their last big dispute with Dallas Jenkins, and The Chosen hit them last year. Slingshot, the purveyor of incredible South African animation that has been producing the upcoming David, a charming epic family film scheduled for theaters in November 2025, has sued Angel over breach of contract and rights violations of their film. Putting the kibosh on the deal, while Angel has so enthusiastically touted the film to vendors at CinemaCon last year as the potentially highest grossing animated film of all time, it threatens to jeopardize any future deal that Angel might make with not just theaters, but also with production companies who rely upon relationships with distributors for their own livelihood and for their work to be seen. If a distributor will violate terms of past deals, then continue violating other production companies without adjusting their own practices, why not continue these practices in future deals? This is not encouraging to see in companies who claim to be a cut above Hollywood's reputational brand of dirty tricks. Something must be done. So THR reports here. We could go there. This is the Hollywood Reporter, which is thr.com. Animated biblical epic David caught in a legal battle over rights. So last year, Angel Studios, home of the sleeper hit Sound of Freedom, predicted to theater owners at CinemaCon that its upcoming film, David, would be the highest grossing animated film of all time, while announcing the title as a splashy 2025 Thanksgiving release. The Utah-based firm, which has eschewed the Hollywood system and prides itself on catering to faith-based and conservative consumers, announced months later it reached a deal to become a publicly listed entity. Since then, Angel has been clashing with Slingshot, the production company behind David, over its rights as the film's distributor. In November, Slingshot terminated its deal with Angel, which responded that it didn't breach the agreement, has been sued in a lawsuit seeking a court order that it no longer retains the rights to the movie. So there's more on here. Angels maintain its deal with Slingshot, which declined to comment, only requires mutual approval for high-level decisions. So some of this little detail I don't get into because some of it's speculative and other of it is like a he said, she said thing, which I don't always get into. But what I do get into is what I know. And so, as I say, as we know, Dallas Jenkins is the chosen has engaged with Angel Studios in a similar struggle last year, finally coming out of it this year after risking millions in a lawsuit in order to decouple themselves with them. They survived it, but they also had multiple years of success, including financial success, which could help bolster them in a legal dispute. Not everyone will have that kind of luck or privilege. So Angel or Dallas Jenkins might have survived this with Angel, but doesn't mean Slingshot's going to survive. Not everyone can play these legal games, you know. Not to call it a game and minimize it. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that legal matters can be very murky and difficult to navigate and very expensive and stressful. So not everyone has that kind of luck or privilege, as I say here, to be able to survive that. I say Slingshot's film hasn't even been able to recoup investment, as far as we know. And the quality, and therefore the cost, looks to be world-class craftsmanship from Sunrise Animation Studios in Africa. As a result, David may end up dead in the water, leaving many investors at a loss. I give you a link to the davidmovie.com. Other rumors of a dispute with distributor Angel were rumbling beyond the surface, but without evidence, these things get remembered as events that we cannot yet understand. For example, the Pharma movie was taken off of Angel's slate in 2023 at some point, even while the film was close to being finished or partially finished. Star of the pro-life film Unplanned, Ashley Bratcher, headlined and produced it, and it appears they are still hoping to finish their crowdfunding independently. So it looks like they broke off from Angel for some reason. We don't know why. Accusations were made. What happened? We are not privy to this information, but I do not believe that a legal dispute ever occurred. What I saw and heard were some disgruntled views on how Angel was or was not working with them in a likable way. Obviously, we're not hearing both parties. We're only hearing things through others online, which is not a reliable source. Another potential issue was the question of who owned the rights to Tim Ballard's story, giving rise to a pause in moving forward on a second Sound of Freedom film, which was being planned at that time. This rights insecurity issue should not have occurred if relationships between Ballard, Verastagi, Monteverde, and Angel Studios were going swimmingly, but there was somehow a disconnect. I wrote an article here on this matter. Sound of Freedom sequel may be in danger. Will rightful owner of Tim Ballard's life story show themselves? Apparently Tim Ballard probably made some kind of mistake in giving rights to somebody or rights getting tangled up, and apparently, well, in my view, well, here I can just read this. This is my view. So you'd think that instead of giving rise to confusion, a coherent understanding that securing the rights leads to a financial benefit for all of these parties involved. But since this was not understood, the presence of power grabs and vying for control threatened to warp these clear and pure intentions, especially because money doesn't even have to be your intention for you to see that the moral and cultural benefit for everyone who sees these kinds of films outweighs this. So keeping control of the message of the film can be pursued simply for the benefit of others. and to society. Good champions of these good stories know that most of all. This financial interest only needs to be a small portion of the entire interest, but making money literally provides you with the resources necessary to continue defending the story from corruption. Gaining a salary from this allows you to keep doing this work, or without it, you will need to do something else. So, um, meaning Angel or other parties may have contributed to the misapplication of values, leading to these important stories not being protected from corruption. Extracting wealth is not enough as it comes to media. What must occur is a protection and fortification of valuable cultural stories in exchange for that wealth. That fortification of story is the job itself. So I also go through the fact that we don't know what's happened to these other angel stories. Some films appear to jump the line in production order at Angel. And so I kind of speculate on why that might be happening based on what I already know, which is that Angel has made guarantees or deals with theaters to provide more product. And that means that they might be allowing films that are um, close to finishing or finished in their production to jump the line in front of a bunch of other films they've been developing for years. So I'm not making a judgment on that and saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that Angel might be losing the plot on what they're trying to accomplish. Um, and I give them a clue on what to do, which is to protect your relationships with great producers and artists. And if you can do that, then you can survive all this stuff. But if you can't do that, then your brand starts to get lost.
Yeah.
And the brand is what you really are. So what I say here is story is king for these companies. And that means storytellers, not IP control, which is an illusion. Hollywood lives by IP control. That's what they do. They believe in IP control. And and what that means is they've forgotten where IP comes from. It comes from creators, storytellers. So what they try to do is extract wealth from IP. So that's just how I say it. Story is king, and that means storytellers, not IP control, which is an illusion. As soon as one tries to control IP, they change it into something else, something useless and meaningless, fashioned only for money extraction. But great stories are made by unique personalities, artists, talent, and these authors of story are people who need care, not lawsuits. So, yeah, that's my article on Media Moses. Um, it's for members only because it's a think piece. So it's easy to just sign up because it's just for your email. Um, and later on we'll be charging for it, but not right now. So yeah, so a lot of issues have been happening in the last week or two, starting with 2 weeks ago, right? I mentioned Jeremy Boring. And then a lot of people, there was a slew of responses to what happened to Jeremy Boring, whatever that was really. We do know that he left his CEO position at the Daily Wire. And someone, I forget the name of the guy because he's not really public. He doesn't really show up. I think his name is like, I don't know. He's Carl somebody. I don't know. He's the other CEO of Daily Wire who doesn't show up. He's probably the one sitting on his desk the entire time, making phone calls, trying to make everything happen. So, he's the CEO, and Jeremy Boring was the co-CEO. And now Jeremy Boring, just like last year, how he left to do the Pendragon cycle, he left again to go into entertainment again. So I don't know if that's Pendragon or I don't know if that's Atlas Shrugged or whatever project they have brewing. They always seem to have a lot of projects brewing, but they don't announce that much. And it almost feels like Angel does the opposite. Like they announce everything that they're doing because they're marketing people. They know how this works. And later on, you can always say what happened or things didn't always work out. But it's good to build buzz, and the Daily Wire doesn't do that very well. So, just like right now, right, there's a time to stay quiet and there's a time to give a simple announcement about what's going on. And now is the time for them to give a simple announcement about what their plans are and where they're headed, make a game plan. It's been 2 weeks, and I'm sure that even before that, the Daily Wire had been mulling this decision over. So for them not to have made an announcement is it's not a good sign. It means that things might be happening behind the scenes that are not well planned out, are not well executed. And so a lot of the speculation that's been going on online is that the Daily Wire is basically falling apart. And of course, people are going to run with this kind of stuff. A lot of the Daily Wire haters are going to love saying this kind of speculative stuff. And then there's people who will claim none of this is speculation, that they have an inside source behind the scenes. And people could say this and nobody could ever call them out on it. And it could all just be made up. All it has to do is sound somewhat believable, and they can get lots of views on social media just for sounding believable. And nobody will ever call them out and be like, let's see the facts on that, because as you know, journalists don't have to give up their sources, so they can think that they're coming off as some kind of legit journalist or something just by making up nonsense. And that's how these kinds of claims work. You don't have to give your source, so you can just make any claim you want and nobody can call you out. And then you get tons of clicks based on this. So this is kind of how modern internet journalism works. It's very shady. And you can dump on someone easily this way. And since people don't know how to call them out, people don't know how to challenge them, they get more and more clicks, while honest journalists might not, because they have to withhold their judgment. So since they have journalistic ethics and they believe in integrity and the truth, that's what they believe in. So they don't believe in clicks and money. That's not what good journalists believe in. So what people have to figure out here is to say, well, there's things we do know about what's been going on in the past year or two, right, with the Daily Wire. And there's things we don't know. And there are things that are not in the character of these people to do. Because why? Because we've seen them before. We know how they act, right? This is the kind of thing that's happened before. So we really can't, what we do know is that Jeremy Boring has done this before, but he didn't feel the need to say he's stepping down before. That's the difference. He has effectively stepped down before, but he never felt the need to say he's stepping down before. So this makes this a little different, but not a lot different. Also, I think that the company would not be foolish enough to let Jeremy Boring kind of take the L while they've been having some bad press about Candace Owens and Brett Cooper. So a lot of people support these other people because they're on the compassionate side and they're on the girls' side. And they're going to defend the victims against big, bad, conservative media. So, which of course is a huge monolith of terrifying terror to these poor ladies. No, the Daily Wire is like 1% of media. Like, sure, they make money now, but do you know how much money these other companies run by liberals make? Oh my goodness. So it's silly to always look at this as a victim, first of all, and then to project onto it that Jeremy is leaving because of that. That I don't think those are related things. And I don't think it's fair to kind of project your own victimization onto that situation. My belief is we're going to find out, hopefully within the next month. Daily Wire is going to realize it should make a statement. And hopefully Ben Shapiro or somebody has the courage to say what's actually happening. Well, hopefully
Wow.
Jeremy Boring himself has the courage to come out and say something. Even an unprepared statement, just kind of, you know, because what you want to do is steal the victory away from all these accusers. That's really what you have to do. And the only thing you have to do is tell the truth to do that. So if that's not something they can do, then that is concerning. That is actually a very concerning situation. And the Daily Wire actually might be falling apart. But look, I mean, I followed the entertainment efforts of Daily Wire mostly, which lately has been not that much. And I kind of keep an eye on them, keep my ear to the ground on any rumblings from Daily Wire of entertainment efforts coming out. I don't consider like Jordan Peterson's documentaries to be entertainment. So I don't report on those very much. They're actually not that entertaining for me. I've heard him before. I like Jordan Peterson. I don't dislike him. But he has kind of this pseudo-scientific perspective about Christianity that's getting a little tiring. Um, like if you're going to start believing in Christ, just do it and get it over with. You know, stop kind of trying to psychoanalyze the Christ. Like you're going to fail. Okay. And then a lot of their other efforts, including like I do think Matt Walsh's work with Am I Racist was pretty funny. So that was entertainment to me. I did enjoy that. But I mean, that's all they've put out for like feels like a year. And they did well releasing it theatrically, which was a surprise, kind of a happy surprise that they were able to do that. I'd been putting in my articles for the longest time that Daily Wire needs to go theatrical, and I'm glad that they did, but I understand why it took them a while. Theatricals are hard enough to crack. It's very expensive, and you have to get trusted partners to release it properly. So that's not easy to do. And they pulled it off. And so now my hope is that Pendragon Cycle is going to blow everybody away and that it's
Yeah.
going to come out in a matter of a few months. That is my hope, is that Jeremy Boring is trying to get all the tools and all the people and the whole team together to release the Pendragon Cycle. Obviously, it can't be released theatrically. This is a show, and it's too big of a show to release theatrically anyway. My hope is that they're going to release it on their platform and that it's going to do really well. But I really love what I see from the Pendragon Cycle so far, but I think they kind of bit off more than they could chew, frankly.
Mm.
Um, they're like if you watch Netflix's trajectory as a streaming service, they were never like, oh, we're just going to start making this, I don't know how many millions of dollars worth of show right off the bat. Like
Yeah.
that's just not a very good plan. They've tried, it looks like almost like they've tried to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall too, like with Matt Walsh's Judged show and some other show. Like I didn't like the Mr. Birch or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
I didn't like that either. I mean, it almost feels like they're trying to produce their shows themselves. That's what it feels like. They're trying to be the producers and the talent of their own shows. Like you can pull that off with something like Lady Ballers, but you're not going to pull that off with a like a constantly running show. Um, these things are highly involved. I mean, you need people doing this full time, each show full time. And so them running their own influencer thing while doing a show like Matt Walsh with Judged, that is just not possible. You can't do all that. It's too much to do. So these guys need to get some trusted producers that can produce a bunch of shows for them and put out a new thing every 3 months. Like they need to be putting out a new thing every 3 months. So how are
Mm.
you going to do that? You got to start somewhere, right? Get some producers and throw a few $1 million at each one of them and say, this is an indie production, man. Go for it.
Yeah.
I want to see your pilot and we're going to make it happen, you know? So, I don't know. It feels like Daily Wire has kind of bit off more than they can chew with Pendragon Cycle, which is a huge show. Only like a few years into their whole company, when most of what they do, I mean, we're talking 90% of what they do is all politics and day-to-day news cycle. That is enormously difficult.
Mm.
Um, so I think that yeah, they've got some work to do to pull this together. So Angel Suffering, um, Slingshot, that the company might remove David from Angel's slate and prevent Angel from releasing the film. And if that happens, David will probably be pushed back another year or two. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Um, and that's if it goes without a hitch, actually. But if Angel has some grounds to say, no, this is not a great claim that you're making legally, then Angel could say, listen, let's kind of arbitrate this instead of it be a win or lose scenario here. Why don't we make some compromises and um, but it looks like they're going full lawsuit now.
Mm.
So I think that Angel might have failed to arbitrate or mediate. So that's a really sad situation. Obviously, I don't know their whole deal. I don't know if they were required to go to arbitration before they got to this point. They might have been, or they might not have been. So that's not looking good for Angel. They could lose, like they already lost to Chosen. So, and that was their most valuable property. David is probably their next most valuable property,
Mm.
potentially. And I'm saying that potentially,
Yeah.
obviously, because they haven't monetized yet. But like, besides that, I guess stuff like Tuttle Twins and Wing Feather. Wing Feather for the artistry of it, not they don't produce as much as Tuttle Twins, and Tuttle Twins is really excellent. I mean, it's so good. Um, so Tuttle Twins is probably their second best property right now. And I don't see any way they would lose Tuttle Twins. So Angel still has a lot of potential to keep going. But this whole situation might put the kibosh on future deals with filmmakers because they might look at these situations and say, I don't want to get involved in that. Like that's you're looking towards somebody constantly kind of taking over your rights and misusing your rights. Um, I'm not saying these things are true or not. I'm just saying that a filmmaker could look at that from the outside or a producer or somebody and say, this is kind of chilling the whole environment for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it would be smarter for Angel to like settle out of court than it would be to like have a big lawsuit.
Yeah.
So, because you look less contentious, you know? filmmakers can't deal with a big company coming after them. Like we don't have the money for that. So that just means we're going to go with someone else, sadly,
Yeah.
you know. Um, because I mean, to be fair, maybe Angel's just defending their rights, but what they don't understand, what they might not, and they could be in the right even, but what they might not understand is that the filmmaker doesn't have time for all that. Like we don't have the desire to constantly be, you know, in a dispute with some kind of distributor over our rights. So we would rather just work with somebody else. And I mean, frankly, you can distribute stuff online. So it's not like filmmakers have no power to do stuff. Like we can be seen and heard. We just might not make the same amount of money. But look, if we're making a lot of money, but then we're being sued all the time, now that kind of doesn't look as appealing, you know? So this is not looking good all around, for Angel or for Daily Wire. Other stuff going on. Let's see. We talked about that, but did we talk about The Chosen?
No, you saw The Chosen last night.
I did. Let's watch the trailer really quick.
Okay.
You must know something. I do believe that Jesus is most likely the Messiah.
Why?
Why what?
Why do you believe that?
I've seen too much.
Then why are you doing this?
I suppose I have not seen enough.
Jerusalem, Jerusalem. You can run on for a long time.
My house should be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of thieves!
By what authority are you doing these things?
My own!
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
We have a problem. Jesus operates entirely outside our jurisdiction. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees! Stop this at once! The world is changing, and Jesus offers a vision to redeem it. He's not the Messiah!
God's gonna cut you down.
Declaring yourself a sovereign. Rome will descend on us all.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
The Pharisees are plotting to arrest Jesus of Nazareth.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
I want peace, just like you. If you go through with this, our alliance is over.
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
There is talk of a collaborator from within of his own followers.
Go and tell that midnight rider.
City's on edge. If you succeed, I'll be the one left to pick up the pieces.
Go tell that long-tongued liar.
I ask that you keep your distance from me in Jerusalem these next few days.
Why?
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
You serpents! How will you escape being condemned to hell?
What have you done?
Sooner or later, gotta cut you down.
Woo!
Mm.
I love that trailer. So
Yeah.
I did see it last night.
How was it?
Part one, they call it. It was very good. Part one includes episode 1 and episode 2. They're gonna have, I think, parts 4, up to part 4 or 5. Which I guess it's up to part 4, maybe. So I guess 2 episodes each part. I think that's how it works. So a new part is going to be released every week until up to Easter, I think. I think that's how it goes.
Wow.
And I think on uh what is it called? Is it on Easter Day or something? I don't know, but they're going to play all the parts in one day. So if you missed a part over the next few weeks, you can pick it up all on the last day.
Nice.
So that trailer is incredible. In fact, the trailer has a pacing to it that the show kind of lacks, which it was kind of sad for me because I love that trailer. I love the pacing of it. It kind of reminds me, it is the Johnny Cash probably, but it reminds me of a Western, kind of a
Yeah.
showdown between good and evil.
Yeah.
And for especially I love the overturning of the tables, just not just as it played out, but as a theme. I just
Yeah.
love it as a theme.
Right.
And they showed in the first part that I watched last night, they showed some of this from the perspective of Gentiles who want to kind of join the faith and come in, and they're like asking some of the disciples to explain some of the temple life and what they have to do during Passover and what it all means. And so basically they're learning how to be Jews as
Wow.
as Gentiles.
Yeah.
And so many people today even still don't understand the Jewish faith. They think it's all Jews versus Gentiles. A Gentile is never allowed to become a Jew. This is just simply false.
Yeah.
This always has been false. People who are Gentiles can become Jews actually. So being a Jew is not a race or even really a nationality. It is a nationality, but it's more of a faith, and you can join that faith, right? So um the whole idea of the Jewishness being a bloodline or a nationality was the idea that Jesus would come from the line of David. And so mothers would be like, is my son going to be this person? Am I from the tribe of Judah? Are they coming from this line? And also, part of the law was training up your children to be good, um, kind of keepers of the law. And so, being good at reading the Bible and all those things, those were all very important things to do and learn. So there's traditions to uphold and keep, and the law to understand, and a lot of reading of the Bible. I mean, the Jewish culture essentially made the world literate, the whole world literate, because they have a great tradition of literacy in the Jewish culture. And they're, imagine if our holidays were about reading. Well, theirs are. Their holidays are all about reading
Yeah.
from scripture. We
And
would be bored. We would be bored by that. We'd be like, kids would be like, why do we have to read things?
yeah.
Because I told you to. Shut up. You know, like that, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what the culture was.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting seeing Jews in this, or Gentiles rather, learning about the Jewish culture at Passover in the Chosen. Like that's just kind of interesting. And so people were explaining all of the things happening, and oh, you have to pay for this, and oh, you have to pay for that, and it's starting to not look good anymore. Like
Wow.
it's like, well, you have to pay that, and the exchange rate is pretty terrible, and all this stuff. And so all this stuff was true at this time of Jesus. They had That's what turning over of the money changers' tables was about, right?
Yeah.
It was about reforming the temple, being a reformer, which I've told many people before. Jesus was a reformer. He was a religious reformer. So people who are like, "Oh, you can't be Protestant." That's when has the church ever been Protestant reforming things? What are you talking about? The prophets are reformers. Jesus is a reformer. All these people are reformers of these religions that get out of control, right? These religions become human religions. They get out of control. People start adding laws on top of things, stuff that was never required or even encouraged by God. And he even said, don't do it. And then the people did it anyway. So, and that was also in this part, in part one, is them telling these Gentiles, well, these things were added and look out, you know. And so soon after that, it shows Christ, it shows Jesus looking on at the crowds and watching all these things happening in the crowds and kind of getting disturbed by it. He's like, he put his cloak on and he goes out at night or when people aren't watching him and it shows him kind of like disturbed watching all these things. Um, so the trailer was filmed a little bit differently. The pacing was a little different. The
Yeah.
show is it felt a little more fractured than the normal Chosen show. I feel like they're trying to kind of tie a lot of things together to kind of bring more context. But if that's not edited in a really smooth way, it can feel very choppy. So that's kind of how it felt. It felt a little bit disjointed and choppy in places. I think they were trying to accomplish this kind of like visual chaos in between the money changers doing their thing and Christ kind of mourning on the side at watching what's happening, kind of sad for his people, for Jerusalem. Um, and so that kind of it kind of gave Jesus the impetus, right, to go and fashion a whip, which the Bible does say he fashioned a whip. Um, and but then some of that wasn't executed in a way that I thought was the most interesting way to do it. Like it has John following him and watching him while he's fashioning the whip. That didn't
Yeah.
seem necessary to me. Um, but uh, and then the way the trailer shows how that confrontation plays out was very elegant, but the way the show shows it, he starts going in there and having confrontations with people, right?
Mm.
It doesn't feel as systematic and planned out in the show. It feels more like he starts having confrontations and then he knocks over a table and then he's like, okay, all you people out of here. And then he doesn't even really confront the Jews until later.
Mm.
It's more like he's kind of like creating a flurry in the crowd and getting rid of these people and knocking over their tables. And then as they start asking him, what do you like, what's going on? Then he starts talking to them, but that even hasn't even happened yet. It
Mm.
ended with him confronting them and looking at the Pharisees after he had knocked over all these tables. And they're looking at him like, I can't believe this guy did all that in front of everybody. And so a lot of those personal interactions you see in the trailer, where he's like, how could you have done this? You know, like by what authority do you do these things? That hasn't happened yet in part one.
Oh,
And my
okay.
feeling is that's going to happen in the beginning of the next part because it's like they ended with that cliffhanger of him looking at the Pharisees and they're looking at him
Hmm.
and he's like, oh, angry. He's clenching his teeth. Although I have to say, it was beautiful watching him knock those tables over
I feel like I could watch Jesus knock tables over every, like all day. Like I
yeah,
could just watch that all day.
all day. Compilation,
Yes.
table knockover compilation of Jesus. Yep.
Yes.
More turning of the tables? Yes. More?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just a loop.
Just a loop. 2 hours, 3 hours of turning tables over. And then him laying in the grass. After that. That
Yes,
would just be great.
absolutely.
Um, he's my hero. Um,
Mine too.
yeah. So it's good to see someone care about these things. I liked that Jesus was like, it was pretty clear. It was made pretty clear that why Jesus was doing that.
Yeah.
Um, although it did kind of feel like when he knocked a few tables over that he was like, it was like an attitude thing. Like,
Yeah.
My house is supposed to be quiet, a place of prayer, supposed to be this. Now you people are making all this noise. I'm gonna knock your table over. Like in some ways it felt that way, but when you think about that, that's beautiful because that is strictly about a personal relationship between you and God. That's what that's about. It's not even about, oh, this isn't legal to for you to have all these things here. No,
Mm,
that's a technicality. The point is it's a personal relationship, and
yeah.
God is not hearing his people pray. God wants to have that relationship, and we're getting in the way of all that stuff, all that junk, you know. And so that felt pretty cool when I thought about that.
Yeah, that is cool.
Um, yeah, there are some other things. I did like a lot of the relationships that conversation between, I don't know if you remember in the trailer, but one guy said, I'm gonna have to clean up all the pieces. I think that was Herod, the tetrarch. Um, and he's the one who watched the lady dance and then killed John the Baptist. He's the guy. Um, he's pretty amazing as an actor. But
Yeah.
also Caiaphas, he's a pretty amazing too. So to get these two amazing actors going back and forth with each other over some food, um, is was really good. It
Yeah.
was probably the best scene in these first two episodes
Awesome.
because you're literally watching them chew up scenery. It's like it's great. Um, there was some other good stuff. You know, some of the disciple stuff felt a little bit tacked on. It's like they have to show their reaction to things and they feel the need to do that. But these are big events happening. So it might be hard going between these small events with each individual disciple and these large events.
Yeah.
I think it can feel a little bit like whiplash at times when you're going between these big events and also the Pharisees to the disciples and all their emotions about this whole thing. I did like that they used a device, which was the Last Supper itself, to
Yeah.
tie together a lot of scenes. And so these two episodes starts out with Jesus at the table. And you're thinking, how did they get from the triumphal entry? Well, actually, I think that's the triumph. No, wait, yeah, it was them starting out at the Last Supper, and then it goes back to the past, which is the triumphal entry, which they kind of make into a fun scene with the music. And then which was nice. And so you're seeing basically the future first, which is them at the Last Supper, and it's a little somber. It's a little serious. He's kind of reminding people what's going to happen. He's talked about it before, right? He's like, this must happen. A seed must go into the ground and die for it to bear fruit. And this is all in the Gospels, John mostly. And so it's kind of somber for a lot of the disciples. They don't know why he keeps talking in this kind of morbid way, seemingly
Yeah.
morbid way. And also that he must be gone so the comforter may come. And so two of the disciples, Mary Magdalene and John, are kind of figuring this out. They're kind of some of the people behind the scenes who are like talking, going, why is he talking this way?
Yeah.
And so it's like they have this extra bit of quizzical nature to them, and they're dealing with this mystery of why this is happening. And so that's kind of fun to watch a little bit, but it's also kind of like, it feels like whiplash because it's going between these small thoughts, right? Between these disciples that seemingly don't need to be there, and then whipping back to the Last Supper or whipping back to the Pharisees and how terrible these leaders are being.
Mm.
Um, and so it kind of it doesn't have the great pacing of that trailer, right? The unified, harmonious um kind of tone to it and pacing. maybe lacked the amount of time that they needed to that they've usually had to edit it and to put the time and energy into making it perfect, you know? Yeah. But I love that they're tying it all together with the Last Supper. So it feels like at every episode, they're going to have some moment in the Last Supper, some part of his beautiful sermon there.
Yeah.
Uh, at some point, he's going to I think, get to the end of that where he's like, I want us to be one as me and the Father are one. And he's going to be pointing to this united nature of the whole church, how it's going to be. Because that's just such mind-blowing doctrine that you're just like, what?
Mhm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, so that's probably going to happen at some point, and
Good.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I like it. I mean, I think maybe the last, I don't remember which I need to go through the seasons again because one of their seasons, I don't remember if it was season 2 or 3 or even 4. One of them was just so good.
Mm.
Whole season was all like just hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah.
I think this one might be the second or third best.
Yeah.
It's still very impactful, but it's probably not the best season we've seen so far. And again, I'm judging this very early on. It's just the first 2 um, episodes, so enjoying it. It's really good. It's worth seeing for sure.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm gonna see it tomorrow night.
That's right. We're gonna see it together. Be great.
I'm gonna see it with you.
Yeah.
But I love the those last few chapters in the Gospel of John. And it seems like it seems like all of that praying and all of that amazing stuff that he says is happening right there at the table with his disciples.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it could be happening in the garden, but I think it's happening right there,
Hmm.
which is interesting because in the other gospels they keep it a little shorter.
Yeah.
They keep the conversation a little simpler, but I guess John was just writing away. He was just like scribbling and writing down everything Jesus said, and maybe the other disciples had too much of the cup.
Well, maybe that's why they had those special scenes of him and Mary kind of thinking about these things farther because it's really revealing that he was thinking about those things in a deeper
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
He probably, because he was thinking about all these thoughts, he included it in his gospel where a lot of the other disciples maybe didn't pick up on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're trying to reveal there.
Yes.
But yeah, so I guess the other thing we could talk about is House of David.
Yeah.
House of David, episode 3 and 4, we got to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So we watched that. We've been watching that and it's really good. It's different than what I expected. I was thinking um I guess unfairly I was probably comparing it to The Chosen a little bit.
Yeah, it's easy to do that.
Partly because I heard that Dallas Jenkins had been involved and
Mhm.
um anyways, I'm just like a huge fan of David and his story and especially his relationship with God and the Psalms
Yeah.
and how he gets anointed and just lots of things in his life. I'm not saying I'm some kind of expert or anything, but um I get excited about a lot of that stuff. And so the show is really good. Like the directing is amazing.
Hmm.
The writing is amazing. The acting is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a little different from The Chosen in that um
I think it's more audacious than The Chosen,
yeah,
frankly.
that's yeah. Yeah, that's a good word. There's some things like um like for instance, you were talking about the animated movie, David.
Yeah.
And while I haven't seen, obviously, no one's really seen that full movie yet, in the trailer, it feels like God is a character in the movie.
Yep.
And I mean that like in a good way. Like you can see David having a relationship with God, having like wordless conversations with
Mm.
God, where
In
he's
such an innocent way too, just so innocent and sweet.
and so well communicated. Like you can just
Yeah.
tell what's going on by watching it. He's being led in certain ways. And that just made so much sense to me. I was like, well, of course, if you're doing David, you have to include that. And there just isn't, except for the scene where David gets anointed, there just isn't a lot of that
Hmm.
in this show.
Yeah.
We do get to see him singing and playing the harp a lot, and he's singing Adonai, which is really nice. Um, but I just feel like David was just full of the Holy Spirit. I mean, it
Yeah.
says that he was, and so I just imagine that he would be different, that things would just be different for him. Um, Not that being filled with the Holy Spirit means that you're now perfect and your life is perfect and you never make any mistakes, but your
Your
your heart,
attitude is definitely changed.
yeah, your attitude has changed. Your heart is, and this is what people say about David. This is what God said about David, that he was a man after his own heart, after God's heart.
Hmm.
And so I'm hoping I'll see more of that in the show.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying because I think that there is a difference between, like, let's say David and the House of David. In
Yeah,
the sense, obviously David is a family-friendly film. This is not a family-friendly show. It's more for adults.
yeah,
It basically is the Christian Game of Thrones. That's that's how I describe this. It's the Christian Game of Thrones. It's got a lot of drama to it. A lot of courtly drama, which
yeah,
which at first I thought much of this is going to be unnecessary to the plot. Now I feel that's not necessarily true. It feels like they are tying together these situations really well to kind of
yeah,
form kind of a rat's nest of conflict in the House of Saul,
yeah,
and where later a lot of that's going to carry over into the House of David when he becomes king.
yeah,
And I describe it as audacious because not only are the kind of the spectacle is the spectacle of it more audacious.
yeah,
Um, you have giants in it, you have um David going through a variety of really strange situations. You have this kind of witchcraft, and you have Samuel, the man of God. You have all these very almost fantastical elements, and
yeah,
they're treated fantastically as well. And
yeah,
that's where I wouldn't do the same thing if I was directing this. I wouldn't treat it as fantastically. I would treat it like just matter of factly. Their matter of fact is a giant right over there.
yeah,
Let's not freak out about it. He's a huge guy.
yeah,
Okay. Um, but it's real. And also the way the witches and the Samuel does things, it needs to be more matter of fact, like you live in this world, not like it's some kind of Conan the Barbarian fantasy with warlocks and sorcerers. Let's not go there. That's a make-believe world. This is the real world. We know, like, if you felt spirit-filled before, you know how the spirit manifests. He's beautiful. He makes you feel great. He reveals truths to you. He gives you confidence in your life, that your life, if it's lived according to God's will, you have nothing to worry about. Nothing whatsoever to worry about. Um, and
amen.
this is not how it's depicted in House of David. In House of David, the spirit is depicted as making you see instant, frightful visions
Mm,
that are otherworldly and fantastical.
yeah,
And these are always visions, right? Because I think what they're wanting to do is show and not tell.
Yeah.
The truth is, if you have a powerful actor, they can reveal the goodness of God and how God is working and acting through them just by acting a certain way, right? And so I actually think in the first episode where Samuel was coming in as a bold as a lion and just kind of like subduing the attitude of Saul and
Yeah.
being like, this is what the Lord says. That was the Holy Spirit. That's how the Holy Spirit acts. He's no scaredy cat. Like he's going to do this, and God has already given him the authority to do it. And you don't need a bunch of weird fiery visions and weird stuff happening to depict that, to depict how the Holy Spirit works through people.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like it's kind of their go-tos. They have to kind of always go to some kind of weird fantastical vision, like you've got fire coming off of your hand, or you've got some kind of weird, strange thing like Jonathan seeing himself lose and being killed in battle and all this stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is not necessary. Um, all Jonathan has to say is, I have a feeling about this. Here's my feeling. And you know that that's the Holy Spirit. Like, you
Yeah.
just know that. Jonathan was spirit-filled, just like David. Not just like David was spirit-filled and anointed to be king. Jonathan was spirit-filled to be his right-hand man
Yeah.
in battle. And so Jonathan was also spirit-filled, but it was to do his purpose, right? To do his calling. And so a lot of the things that happened are unnecessary.
Yeah.
For example, and most importantly, that AI sequence with the Nephilim was
Yeah.
unnecessary. It was made in the wrong spirit. It wasn't made like because it depicted this love affair as an attractive thing. And that's just a big mistake to do it that way. Um, that's not ever been the point of those scriptures. It was mildly disturbing to see it depicted that way.
It was disturbing. Like I know that's like a popular subject matter. Like people like love to learn about the Nephilim, but like the way that it was kind of told, like in the episode, felt very like this is like these are two people who can't be together and God is trying to keep them apart.
Right, like forbidden love. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
Like
It's not love. Okay.
like God is right, like God is some kind of meanie that and I was thinking like, well, wait a minute. Like
Hmm.
now I know that this story, although it was almost I feel like it was almost quoted mostly, well, no, it wasn't quoted from the Bible, but it was very similar quoted um, from Genesis. And then you find out that it's the actual character who's the mother of the giants who's telling this.
Right, right.
It's her voice, although that wasn't quite obvious at first. And it wasn't like she was making it her own personal story.
Yeah,
It felt more like indoctrination. It felt more
right, right.
um, like these two creatures wanted to be together from other worlds and God was trying to keep them apart. And I was like, what
Oh
kind of
no.
like what like who like what's our heart for this show? Like who do we say God is? Like if like that didn't
Right,
make any sense to me.
right.
I
It's
found
like
that
the writers temporarily took the side of a 13-year-old girl and was like, yeah, but this poor girl wants to do what she wants to do, and we should feel bad for her now. No, I'm sorry. We should not feel bad for her at all. And no, I don't believe that this angel was attractive. And even if it was attractive, should we find the angel to be attractive? So, like, the point of it is to say, also, the reason stated in the Bible that they did that is because she was beautiful. It's not because there's any loving, compassionate concern for one another.
mm-hmm.
That wasn't stated in the Bible at all. The emphasis was that what? The women were attractive. And so they took these women and made a race of people that was what? An abomination to God. And so where in that whole equation does love exist? It doesn't exist anywhere in that equation
Mm-hmm.
because love isn't just sexual attraction. That's not what love is.
Mm-hmm.
And to lie in the spirit and say that that's what love is what the show temporarily failed in starting to do because to play the devil's advocate, right, at this point in the story is a bad choice. There are places and times to play devil's advocate. This is not one of them. Like, actually, playing the devil's advocate for Saul is a good choice.
Yeah.
Playing the devil's advocate for the Giants is not. There's
Yeah.
no place to say, "Oh, I feel bad for the Nephilim and for the angels who fell from grace." What?
It it
Are you
was weird.
serious?
It was just weird. And then you were talking about the AI angel stuff, and that was pretty interesting. Like some really great shots of angels falling from the sky.
Oh, that was cool. The
Um,
visual of them falling was very
yeah,
Paradise Lost.
yeah,
Love that.
that did look really cool.
I just have to interject really quick.
Yeah,
That imagery for me, just every time I see imagery like that, it gives me a heart to make Paradise Lost. I
yeah,
just I feel that imagery like deeply in me. And
yeah.
so like it's very affecting for
Hmm.
me and bolsters my desire to do that project, you know. And because I do think that the truth of that story needs to be told,
Yeah,
you know. It is a tragedy, but it's not the kind of tragedy where you feel bad for Satan.
yeah. Well, thank
You
you
really don't.
for clearing the air on that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. No, I just that part looked really good. But then for some reason they made the angel look like he was on the cover of a romance novel.
He
Like
was like Fabio with his long hair.
it was
The Fabio angel.
it was silly. Like it was very silly. Um yeah.
Bad,
And
bad, bad artistic choice there.
I
Yeah.
just I didn't and none of that made any sense to me.
Yeah.
But I think the episode right before that one had been incredible. A lot of, like you said, drama that was very impactful, and a lot of like feeling for the characters, feeling sympathy for the empathy for the characters, rooting for them, and then um, bad characters doing good things, good characters doing bad things, and like a lot of that good kind of drama was really well done, I thought.
Oh man, wasn't that scene where Saul was going to send his daughter off to get married, and then he changed the daughter to the younger or the older daughter? And that just, at first I was like, really? Oh wow, I'm surprised. First of all, that he's insightful enough to see that they're attracted to each other. But then his mind gets taken over by this disease again, and he breaks the marriage off and totally makes a total fool of himself in front of everyone. He's so paranoid, delusional.
Yeah,
Oh, that scene with his daughter was so sweet,
yeah,
where they were like showing their loyalty to each other.
yeah.
Oh, it just rips your heart out.
It
Oh,
did. I think, yeah, I think we were both crying because it's like the story you never see. Like you never get to hear about the princess and her father makes a good match for her and
yeah,
she's happy and she actually wants to marry the prince. It's always the other way around.
yeah.
And she was surprised and she was glad and everyone was happy and it was like, whoa, this is really special. Oh, and then they just
And then he rips it out. I don't know,
Crashed it,
Dana's,
demolished it. It was heartbreaking.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if
That
I
that
can.
daughter now that I forget her name. She's the other daughter besides Mikkel or whatever. Man, I don't know if she'll ever forgive her dad for that. That I mean, and yet she, she's loyal to him. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's like I think she's becoming a little fatalistic. She's just a little bit like, there's no joy. There's no joy in life.
She already was. And then
Yeah.
marriage was going to be the thing that made her believe again, made her have hope again. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can keep
I have
watching
to say that was a
shows
masterful
much.
moment. That was a masterful moment. And then they had to ruin it with the whole AI thing. And also with David, I think David, I also don't like how David is kind of being a petulant child here about being with Mikhail
Yeah.
and being like, oh, we can be together and we can go off together.
Yeah.
And it's so foolish. It's
Yeah.
like it's
Invited her
the
to
most
elope with
foolish
him.
sounding nonsense. I mean, he's
And
already been anointed to be king.
yeah.
He's already there for a reason and purpose. He just told his friend, I have a reason to be here. Like, get it together, buddy. Like, and then the next episode he decides to walk out over
I
the thing with Mikkel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. Mikkel, is that right?
think that's right.
Yeah. And so he's like, come with me, and if you don't come with me, I'm leaving. It doesn't sound like David to me. It just doesn't. It sounds very childish, and very naive, you know.
Yeah. It,
Maybe he has too much of a soft spot for women. Maybe that's what it's revealing. That whenever
well,
it's something like that, he gets a little bit woo, little loopy.
good point because they have set some things up for that.
Mhm.
Um, the fact that he is missing a mother figure.
Yeah.
Um, and then we know about other things that happen, like we know about Bathsheba and then other things that happen in his life. So it could be
Hmm.
that they're setting up something like that.
Right.
But I don't know. That's a lot of drama for me.
Mhm. It is a lot of drama. It does feel like a Game of Thrones thing, and I would rather a Christian Western with real showdowns. Like that to me is what David Glass should be. That to me was what Jesus in the temple should have been. And let the men work out their business with the
Well,
whips and the guns and the swords and the bow and arrow. That to me is just like, I want to see that, you know?
will somebody please make a Western for John? Please make a Christian Western.
I already got one in my head, as you know, but who's gonna ever fund it for me? Like that's just, I got to make a smaller film. By the way, if we do move, I know this is something we haven't talked about a lot, but if we do move, um, my hope is that uh I can get I can kind of like pitch a lot of these projects to the people where we move, God willing, and make some of these projects happen. But as
Yes.
it is now, I mean, we're in Florida. There's not a lot here, and we might even move before I make 10 days.
Mm,
So if that happens, I'll have to maybe try to, you know, get the project together wherever it is we move to, like get the project together there. In other words, get up our crew and everything where we're at, and then come back to Florida and shoot it for 2 weeks and then go back. Um, just because I will know everything that's here. I know where all the resources are here and I'm
yeah.
familiar with the lay of the land.
Yeah.
And so what we could do before we leave is get all the locations set up, make sure all that stuff is possible, and then and line up all the stuff, whether it's a hotel rooms or whatever. Just line up all that stuff, and then go and then get the crew and the cast where we're at. Right now, we're thinking about, as you know, Texas, Oklahoma, or Idaho. And so these are the places we're planning or we're praying about. Um, there's a reason, and I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but there's a reason that Texas might be on the top right now. And a lot of the reason is because of 5 and 2 Studios. As you know, we talked about Dallas Jenkins. They've already survived their dispute with Angel. They've come out on top. They have a ton of projects already planned, and they're not shooting them yet. What does that mean? They're going to be shooting them. And when they do shoot them, they're going to need new people. Why? Because they've already used old people from the shoot they did before. So a lot of these crews are going to come and go, right? And not only that, you've got The Chosen as a permanent fixture there in close to Dallas, Texas. So just south of Dallas, Texas, they do all their stuff there. Um, and they probably got a good 3 years left of doing The Chosen. And then um they've got the Joseph show, which I believe is an 8 episode sh single season series. So it's like a
Wow.
mini series. And then they've got the Book of Moses, which I believe is a film. Is it a
Wow.
film? Or no, I think it's a series. I don't know. Book of Moses. I forget if it's a series or a movie. They've got The Way of the Chosen, which could be quite a few seasons. I don't know. So all of these three, and there's more beyond this as well that they've got planned. But that says to me they're gonna need a people to come and help.
Yeah.
Then we've got, do you remember the interview with Zachary Levi?
Yeah.
What was he starting? A studio called Wildwood Studios in Austin, Texas.
Oh, that was in Texas. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
It's already there now, but it's not really a studio. It's just property that
Yeah.
he lives on and works on sometimes. I think he's shot like a little short film there or something. You can find it on YouTube or somewhere. And so he probably just needs to fund a bunch of projects there and start building. Um, and I think he was going to treat it like a place where there's a bunch of cottages where people can literally live there and
Yeah.
shoot there at the same time.
Yeah.
Thought that was interesting.
Yeah. A community.
Yeah, like a real community.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating. Um, there's a lot of other production groups there as well. Do you remember we talked about Rebel Without a Crew? Um, what was his name? He made Desperado and um, but yeah, he had what's called Troublemaker Studios in Austin, Texas, I believe. So they've made films in Texas for a while. Then Dallas Sanier, who I don't know if you remember, but he worked for the Daily Wire. His operation is out of Dallas, Texas.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of like conservative adjacent or Christian media
Yeah.
happening in Texas. In Oklahoma, they have quite a bit shooting there as well, Oklahoma City and thereabouts, Tulsa, northern Oklahoma. They
Yeah.
have a lot of stuff there as well that they shoot, but mostly that's just kind of general faith-based work. Like the Irwin brothers shoot there. And then in Idaho, they have Canon Plus. Canon is part of kind of like what would you call that group? I would guess Lore TV's up there as well. Um, they're like the Doug Wilson cultural industrial complex that they have
Wow.
growing up there. So that's kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, they have kind of a media and culture operation up there. They've got a lot of podcasts they're growing. They have a lot of like Indy Wilson, Doug Wilson's son, shoots films sometimes. He's a writer mostly and a producer. He was involved actually in making House of David. Um, and Lore TV, like I say, is up there as well. So these three kind of states to me are the biggest states that I think about. I didn't want to go into Texas at first because it was like it's so hot. I just want to get away from the heat. But
Yeah.
that's just like, a preference. If God wants us to move to uh, the Sahara Desert, I need to be willing to do that. So there's preferences we can have, but like what really matters is the work we're doing, um, the work the Lord wants us to be doing. So
Yeah.
that's exciting. And if I get to have a trip out there and look at some property, we will see if that's possible. So, and I would like to try to make some connections to see if jobs are going to be possible, and how that's going to work. So, but we'll see. And hopefully these tough things that are happening for conservative media will blow over, and hopefully will resolve the dispute, and we'll be able to see David, and hopefully Jeremy Boring will just make good work in entertainment, and the Daily Wire will be fine. And hopefully all this stuff going on with The Chosen will just continue to be successful. And we'll see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. A lot of news this time, but that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Love you. Hope you have a great weekend. And where can people find you, Rebecca?
You can find me on Substack and also on YouTube, Rebecca Loves Jesus, as well as Facebook. And where can people find you, Jon Croft?
Yeah, I'm here on YouTube at Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft. You can find me on X at the Media Moses and at John Edward Croft. And you can find my writing at mediamoses.com. Check out some of those articles I wrote. Hopefully, I'm going to be doing subscriptions soon, and maybe I'll even make some money on it. Who knows? Because it's been 2 years of not making any money on it. We'll see. All right, guys, have a great weekend and stand up for the culture.